Hi. Are you all awake? I mean, it's just after lunch, so I get that you have like that after dinner dip kind of thing. Just promise me one thing. If you fall asleep, it's all fine by me. But please don't snore, right? Because that will be impolite. First of all, some housekeeping things. You all probably know this, right? You can go to the website, you can fill in that hashtag, and you can ask questions. And if you're not shy, you can just raise your hand afterwards. That's also possible. We can do it the old-fashioned way. Why are we here? Well, I thought the title of the talk was life hacking kind of thing, right? But first, we need to talk about something. You and me. I mean, who of you is a developer? Okay, who of you does JavaScript? Who of the rest of who does Java or some kind of JVM language? Okay, so we're all kind of developers. Let me keep it like that. I will not make assumptions. I want to make too much jokes. We're going to talk about DevSecOps. And that's the worst word ever, in my opinion. Who likes the word DevSecOps? One person. Two. Three. You like the word DevSecOps? Well, let me start from the beginning. Who practices DevOps? A few. Okay, let me rephrase that. Who creates software, is responsible for putting it into production, and when something goes wrong, he actually has to fix it. Then, my friends, you do DevOps. Development and operations, that means you're creating the stuff and you're responsible for the stuff. That's the basic idea of DevOps, and not like, oh, we have ops people with new tools. That's not DevOps. Not by the essential definition of DevOps. But DevOps sounded kind of cool. We have developers and operations, merge them together, not siloed anymore. And now we have this new hype train called security, and let's put it in the middle because it's so freaking important. That's why I hate the word DevSecOps. What's the next thing? Dev Cloud Performance Scaling AI Ops? I don't know. But again, the point of security is important though. The meaning of DevSecOps is important because we need to incorporate security more into our process. Because as a developer, before I was working for this company, not actually really aware of being secure. But who am I? I'm just starting let me start to introduce myself. My name is Brian, and I work for a company called Sneak. Some people would say it's Snick, some people will say it's Sneak. I don't care. I do some work for some communities, like the Virtual Jug. You may have heard of it. It's virtual. And we do virtual sessions all over the world with all kinds of people, and we try to do that twice a month. I'm also co-leading the Secure Developer, which is basically also a virtual community, but based on secure development for every ecosystem. So it can be JavaScript, cloud-native stuff, Java, and even people that do languages that were far beyond the age of time. The last thing, I'm working for a local jug, that is the Utrecht jug in Holland, because, well, I am from the Netherlands. You see, I am I've got a Twitter account, so if you have any questions regarding this talk or regarding what we do, please feel free to ping me, and I also have this thing called email. But we talked about DevSecOps, and what do we want to solve with DevSecOps? Because first there needs to be a problem, right? It's not like, here, we have a solution. So what is that problem? Well, I don't know about you, but say 5 to 10 years ago, I worked as a consultant for a government agency, and we were deploying into production maybe 4 times a year because it needed to be stable and safe. Well, if you look nowadays at what we do, we tend to do microservice kind of things or cloud functions, and we try to ship maybe even 3 times a day. So that's cycle of putting things into production is speeding up enormously. And if we look at each other and say, how does this thing work? Well, I have this product manager who comes up to me and says, I want this function, or I want this functionality, I want this now. Why? Because we need to be bigger, better, and stronger than our competitor, which is a fair thing. But it means we have to rush these things in, and we are builders. Developers are builders. We want to build cool new things. And security is not actually our first priority. Because in most companies, it is still a siloed thing. At the end, we have this security department that does some scanning for us, maybe some pen testing, whatever. And basically, we hate these people because they say no all the time, right? Who has that experience with security people? I have. Like, it's like working hard on a new feature, it works, it finally works, you're happy, and like, okay, it's almost weekend, let's push it on production on Friday, and then the security people come up and they say no, because there was some sort of leak or whatever, and whatever. And that's the worst thing ever, because now it's a fight between us. They say no, I want to go to production, yes, and my manager wants me to go to production. But at the end, the problem is that thing is still siloed. We try to move that away with operations and development and put that in DevOps. But actually, the security expertise should be part of your development cycle, so that if we can catch these things from the beginning, it will be a lot easier to get through that process. And at the end, maybe we still do some pen testing. But well, a pen test takes 3 days, and I ship 3 times a day. Good luck with that, right? But at the end, what is the most important part? For the company, it's something like make sure that first things, they need to work, but we also need to make sure that customer data will not be out in the open, right? Because that's bad for us, for the company, and probably also bad for me, because, well, if I'm the one that did that, I first of all need to solve it, and I hate solving things, I just want to build new things. And maybe it may cost my job. But that's all scare tactics, Brian. How bad is it actually? Really? Well, who had heard of a company called Equifax? Quite a few. Who have heard of Equifax like 3 years ago? A few. All right. Then are you based in the US or you just have money there? Because I would say that's good marketing, right? Or bad marketing. What happened with Equifax was they had a system and they were using an outdated Apache struts library, just using it as a dependency. Problem was there was a vulnerability disclosed in that package, and people could snoop in, could sneak in, could wander around, and could see what was there in their system. But Equifax at that point didn't know, and they didn't upgrade. So people were in there for days, months, and snooping around and snooping around. And after a reasonable amount of time, it is a crediting company in the US, by the way, 143 million records were exposed to the public. Well, you can say that's a great marketing stunt because now everybody knows who Equifax is. But I beg the difference. I mean, that is something as a crediting company, as a banking company, or whatever company you are, you probably do not want, right? Who works with client data that is, well, privileged? Say names, addresses, email addresses. A lot of you. So if these things come out and your company name is bound to that, it's not quite a good thing. So in the end, we want to prevent that. But let's look at our system. Say this is our system. This big yellow ball is our artifact that we put into production. What part of this artifact is actually your code? Probably this, right? We write a small amount of code and we heavily depend on frameworks, libraries, third-party piece of code, whatever. And that's all good because we do not want to create yet another endpoint or yet another CRUD repo. We want to focus on business logic because that is what make the difference for our companies, right? So just to make sure that you are awake, I have a small example of a very bad program over here. It's a serverless example and it's Node. 19 lines of code, which sounds kind of cool. I was pretty proud of that. And it had 2 dependencies. How many dependencies in total does this program have, do you think? I heard 1,000, 10,000. It's Node, but it's not that bad. It's easy to make fun of Node, but it's not that bad. It's just 19. But the first one is AWS SDK. Well, that can be a lot because you don't know if you pull in a dependency what else they depend on, the transitive dependencies, right? But now, keep that thought in your mind. How many lines of code am I pushing to production? It's not 19, trust me. Any guesses? 100,000. Oh, no, that was 1 million, right? It's almost 200,000. And you're not sure which pieces you are using and not, right? And there is a lot of magic in a lot of programming languages going on. So you can say, yeah, we're not using that function, but are you sure? And what happens if you build on top of that? And maybe it is possible via some sort of way. Are you really sure? Next one. A Spring serverless example. And this one is even worse example. It was 220 lines of code, 222 lines of code. We wrote it as a demo example, and it has a lot of copy and pasting, but it had a few dependencies. It had 5 direct dependencies. But it's Spring. So it means that we had 54 dependencies in total. How many lines of Java code did I put into production with this thing? Just 5 million. It's not Node. Oh, I should make fun of that, right? 460,046 at that point with these amount of dependencies. But you see, a small amount of code that you write yourself, a large amount of code you import. Who of you trusts their coworker blindly? Yeah. Push it to master. I won't look at it. One. You work alone, right? No. Doesn't matter. You have good trust, and trust is a great thing to have. I hope you pray as well. But, I mean, most of people, we do not trust our coworkers, right? We want to do things like code reviews or pair programming. Who does code reviews? The rest of you does pair programming, hope. Let's keep it to that. But we do check our partners. We do check our peers. But do we check the stuff we pull in? Well, it's from Spring. What could go wrong? Right? And that's the one that is actually a known dependency from a company that is well known. But what about these things you just pulled from GitHub or you pulled from Stack Overflow? It works, ship it. That's most of the time what happens, right? We do not trust our peers, but we do blindly trust our dependencies. And the point is, open source usage has exploded the last couple of years. I mean, and what do you think will happen? Attackers will get into that open source, into these open source problems. If a large library is vulnerable, people will just look at that and say, okay, we found something, and wildfire. Shoot at your application, your application, your application, and your application. Maybe you got into the crossfires, and you will be hacked. That's what happened to Equifax. If you look at the total packages indexed per ecosystem between 2018 and 2019, NPM is the clear winner. And that says something about the quality. I can get a story about a person that knew exactly that he was the 1 millionth package. It was in May or something like that. And people were asking why. How do you know you are the 1 millionth, you produced the 1 millionth package? Well, I actually wrote a script that published 60 packages at the same time. And I was just waiting until I was in that bound and just pushed, done. So I know for sure that I published the 1 millionth package. That says, in my opinion, says something about the quality of a lot of packages. But okay, and again, I will not pick on NPM. But if you look at Maven, it's still a very steep line, right? It's over a 100,000 packages growth within a year. And if we look at the vulnerabilities each year by ecosystem, unfortunately, Java's the clear winner. Well, Maven Central in this case. And if we look at these packages, most of the time, if we just pick out Maven Central and NPM, because these are the biggest ecosystems, it's not the top level packages. Most of the time, it's the packages they depend on. For instance, Spring is using a Jackson parser or whatever, right? So it's most of the time it's the underlying packages that have the problem. And if we ask open source maintainers, how confident are you about your own security knowledge? Because we do not trust our peers, but we trust you blindly. 63% says, kinda. But if we ask the same amount of people, and this was from a report we call the State of Open Source Security, which we released in February this year. If we ask the same amount of people who is responsible for security in general, 81% says developers have to take their fair share. And most of the time it's a combined risk or a combined responsibility between security teams, operations, and developers. But 81% says developers have to take their fair share. Well, then we can go on like how do you find out about vulnerabilities? 27% say I won't. But let's go to this one. Once a vulnerability is disclosed or discovered, maintainers want to fix their stuff because, well, that's what we want to do. How many days in general does it take to fix a vulnerability so a new package is out? What do you think? 3 days, I heard 60 or 16? 60, so 60. It's in between, it's 16. That's the median. But how many times does it, days, months, years, you can say whatever you want, does it take for a vulnerability in generally to get disclosed? I mean, who has legacy apps that they have to maintain? Who doesn't dare to touch it but just fix it if it's needed? Just tweak a little things but don't switch out dependencies. A lot, right? I was doing the same thing, and even for big banking companies. But it can take up to, or the median is 2.5 years. So it means when you're in production, at that point, it cannot be vulnerable, or it may not be vulnerable. But over time, it will be. So if you're maintaining a legacy application that is displayed to the outside world, you probably have a vulnerability. Who uses Docker? Who uses Docker images from Docker Hub and build their own application on top of these things? A few, right? In March, we downloaded the top 10 free Docker images from Docker Hub from known maintainers, like Postgres and Node and that kind of stuff. And we looked at the vulnerabilities. The basic Node image, so the latest image, had over 500 vulnerabilities. The point was, it wasn't Node's, there wasn't the fault of Node. They were that image was built up on top of a Debian image, which was kind of outdated. The latest image at that point was on Debian, was built on Debian Jessie. And all these 500 plus vulnerabilities could be traced back to vulnerabilities in the OS layer. So we should take care of that as well. Wow, that's a lot, Brian. Yes, it is. So when do you scan your images for OS vulnerabilities? Half of the people interviewed say we probably don't. Well, and we go on and on with these kind of things, but we are here to see some hacks because I promised you that. So let's go into that hacking phase. I will just close this one first. I will share my screen like this. You probably see yes, you see my screen. Cool. Questions will be done later. Let's go to this amazing application. You see, I'm a very good programmer and a better designer, right? This is a to-do application, so something like buy flowers, because I've been away a lot from home and I need to buy my wife some flowers. So I can create to-dos. Awesome. And what we have as well is we have an about page. This is actually the best about page ever. But I know that this about page is served with a Node module called the ST library for static content to be published. And I know that this ST library has a vulnerability with path traversal. Who knows what path traversal is? All right, so you can help me out. We're going to hack this live. And this is an actual package. So what should I do first? First, normally I would put my hoodie on and put my hood on because then you are a real hacker, right? Second thing you have to do not do it in the browser, go to the terminal, because what in his sane mind, what kind of hacker would do it from the browser? So I will do it from the terminal, and say I would use just curl was localhost 3001 slash, let me just check over here, public slash public slash about.html. Cool, that works. So let's path traversal this kind of thing. What should I do first? Dot slash. Yeah, that's actually a great thing because that's a normal path traversal. Dot slash or dot slash or dot slash or dot slash, right? And because if I do dot slash in the root, I will end up in the root. And then I get HTML back, which is my to-do app. And the ST library is a real library. That library checks for dot slash. But I know that this library is blacklisting dot slash. So maybe we can do something else. Any ideas? Sorry, who said that? I heard something with percent to what? It's almost, it's percent to E, but that's URL encoding, what you're discussing, right? So instead of a dot slash, again, I want hands. Who said that? Are you a developer or are you a hacker, sir? A developer. I'm not sure. I would take a look at this person and be sure that he doesn't get into your application, because that's far too fast to say, well, let's do URL encoding. Percent to E. And again, percent to E. Well, let's do that. Copy this one and do that over and over and over and over and over again, and you will see we end up in the root. Right? Cool. That's awesome. And then there's always some wise guys that, yeah, but you should be, the user should be bound to certain privileges. Of course, that's true, but it's always the problem that it's not just one hack or one problem, but it's a chain of problems. In this case, we run this thing as a root. So yeah, you can go out in there. But what we can do as well is just go back one more time, and you can argue if this is path traversal or not, but I'm still in that namespace, and I can see what the package.json is, right? And now I can see what all your what all the things are that are in your application. So I can snoop around, and I can this is just the start of my investigation as a hacker. It's not a very hard, severe vulnerability, highly severe vulnerability, but it's a low one. It's a read-only thing, but it's the start of something, because now I have the option to read things, and I can snoop around and see what's there. Maybe there's a passport file over there. Maybe there are whatever. You can imagine what we can do, right? So this one was an easy one. Let's do a second one. And I have to look that one up because, well, I'm so good at remembering things. Again, we have this to-do app. And I have to ask you a question. Who likes regular expressions? Who likes debugging other people's regular expressions? Fair enough. Regular expression is a one kind of thing, right? It's a write only. And if it works, and we leave it like that. But if we have a regular expression, say our regular expression is something like this. It's a very, very weird one. Say this is my regular expression and this is the string we want to compare to. Of course, this works. But how does it work? Does it use the plus? Does it use the star? Does it use the plus until halfway and then the star? Or the simple answer is we don't know, because that depends on the engine. But what we do know is if we make a regular expression very long and we want to compare that to a string and it doesn't work, we go into some sort of backtracking mode, right? And basically it tries all the possible examples that fit into that regular expression to compare that to that string. So if I can make my regular expression really, 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 really long, and compare that to a string, what happens? This is a node application. On how many threads does a node application work? 1. At that point, if I just consume all the computational power by a very large regular expression, we have basically a denial of service. And we call this a regular expression denial of service, a redos. Let me show that. So, first of all, I'm going to show you that we have this concept over here. I can echo content and I can fill in the form because I'm using HTTP. And by doing this, I'm echoing content and I'm filling in the form like this. You see I will have my result back, and in my application you will see I said call mom in 20 minutes. So it does something with a number and that minutes kind of thing, right? So say I want to do this. Let me enlarge that. I want to buy milk, and I will print 60,005 and match that to minutes, and then put that and put that as an argument to that form. Is this all readable, or should I enlarge it? I enlarge it. Right? 60,000 minutes. So if I put that in, it would come back instantly, because this regular expression fits. And if you look at my outcome over here, buy milk in infinity days, then it's probably sour, but fair enough. But okay. What should I do with this thing to go into that backtracking mode of a regular expression? Everybody's sleeping. No problem, I will just ask. I just make sure that it doesn't fit. And as I'm Dutch, I can always play the foreigner card and say, I misspelled things, sorry. So minutes. And it hangs. And if I go back to my application, it hangs until every possibility of that regular expression is checked upon that string, and then you'll see it will free up the memory, or free up the computational power, and the rest of the request will come through. Can you imagine what this does if you are, say, working for the biggest competitor of Amazon on Black Friday, and you know that Amazon works on a node application, which not in the cloud, but on just real iron hardware. I will do this just a couple of times because I know they work on 3 servers, for instance. I will do this a couple of times because they have this library. They are not available anymore for the rest of the year or for the rest of the day, and everybody will come to me. But who of you works in the cloud? Can you imagine what happens if this application is cloud-based? So this instance doesn't respond anymore. So we spin up a new one, and we spin up a new one, and we spin up a new one. Then it's not a regular expression denial of service anymore, but a regular expression denial of pocket money. We just make you poor. But you see, these kind of things are problems, can be problems, and can make sure that for certain companies, they are just out of service. All right, but that's enough fun of NPM, right? Let's go to Java things, because there are a lot of things wrong in Java. Can be a lot of things wrong in Java. Let's go to this application, and I will show you the actual problem that Equifax had with the Apache Struts hack. So let's sign up in this application. Let's do a password 126 because I work for a security company. 123456. That's amazingly secure. No, don't save that. And again, it's a to-do app because we need to do things. Create a to-do app. Again, buy flowers for my wife. Put it on. Let's make that high. So we can do to-do apps. We can do to-dos. Awesome. If I'm going to the About page, and nobody ever does this, you will see that I have struts 2.3, which conveniently is the hackable struts thing. Okay, So what's the problem with the Apache struts thing? Well, I will show you the problem because Apache struts, with Apache struts we can do post requests. And the problem is that with these post requests we can put in certain stuff. If I show you a header that I will input, you will see I will input a content type. Who recognizes, you see it's a content type, who recognizes this content type? Was it? Nobody, right? Because it's bogus. It's an illegal content type. But the point is that by doing this, I am using the OGNL language. It's the object graphical navigation language that is built in struts. It's their domain-specific language, their expression language. And with that expression language, I can alter objects in runtime, like set things, get things, or even make new instances of other objects. And what happened here is, by having a wrong content type, we go into an exceptional flow in this struts library, and we are able to use that OGNL language. And by doing that, I will simply have a command over here, and basically what I do, I instantiate bash, and I will enter that command. And I didn't make up this header. That was one kid without a life, I guess, who probably reverse engineered it. But the point is, if this header is on the internet and it's published, people will start using it. And people will make tools to use it, to do enormous amounts of these requests. So let me just go into this. Let me see where the other one was. I have it here as an example, and I will do struts exploits.sh. So if I take this example, and I will use this header that I showed you, and instead of just the command thing, I will put another command in, which is env. And we can put any Linux command in, and env basically shows you the environment variables, right? But let's not do it on a local machine, because this one was running on Heroku, right? So let's do this one instead of on my local machine, because not running on my local machine. Let's do this on my Heroku app. And that doesn't work. I made a mistake. Let me just get it again. Got stretch as blood. Sorry, I can't hear you. Space between X and get. What's the problem with that? Shouldn't be there or should be there? Ah, probably did. Thank you. Demo effect, right? So let me do that again without the space between get. Of course, X get. Damn, should have known that. But you see that if I run this on my Heroku app, then now we have the environment variables of that Heroku instance. And fun fact, this is where the JDK is on my Heroku instance. Okay, fair enough. Keep that one in mind. Keep that one in. It's /app/.jdk. So I know where the JDK is in my Heroku app. But the point is, I can execute any command over there. Env is just displaying the environment variables, but I can do whatever I please. I can even maybe override other commands and come back the day later and do it again. And good luck with you finding in your log files what happened actually. So this is a pretty severe one. Although the header, you will not come up with the header instantly. The problem is that once it's published, you do have a problem because people can just use it. So we have that /app/jdk, right? The other thing we have in this application is that we can upload files. It's still running. Yeah, not. Let me sign up again because it's probably restored. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. No, and I'm there again. Let me create a to-do. And I do something like this. Eat pie. And I do it at the first of, and I probably am hungry. And what we see over here is that that pie symbol is converted into an ASCII symbol, or an ASCII representation, right? So I know that this version, or this to-do app, every line that is there goes into the native to ASCII function that is there in the JDK. And we are going to override that. Because what we can do as well is we can upload files. And this stuff can upload zip files. And there's the next problem. Because what you see with zip files in Java is that we do not have a lot of proper libraries to do so. Most of the things are handcrafted or are part of other libraries, but there's no thing in the JDK to unzip a library, right? Or to unzip a zip file and put it into a certain folder. So what you see is that people handcraft these things or use a library to do so. The problem is that in many cases, people do not check what the directory is they put in versus the name. They just take the directory, take the name, concatenate these two, and execute. So what happens if I go over here? And we have a zip file over here, the last one, zip/slip.zip. And my zip file looks like this, containing two files, a good.txt, and the second one contains the files with a /////app, point JDK, exactly the JDK in my Heroku instance, /native to ASCII. If you do not check on that path and just blindly push that with the file name and execute that, then we actually go into this case the JDK part of the Heroku instance and overwrite this native to ASCII thing. Let's try that. So if I go to this file, and it was here in demos zip slip. And if I open this zip file and I upload it, two things can happen. I see that in the public folder, that where I expect my zip file to be extracted, there is that good.txt, the one part, and the other part I don't see an error. So it can mean two things. Or it swallowed the error and doesn't do anything, or it actually blindly, naively executed what we expected to do. Going back to my create a to-do, and I say again, eat pie, or anything else, it doesn't matter. And I will put it there, and I will give it a high priority, and I create it. You will see that now every time we do it over there. So we actually overrode the native to ASCII function that is part of the JDK of my Heroku instance. And this is what we call a zip/slip problem, because we can create zip files with these path traversals in it and execute these things. Well, I have a lot more of these hacks. I got a Spring hack, but the Spring hack is basically sort of the same as the Equifax hack, because we can insert SPEL in it and execute Linux commands. So that's not much fun. But I want to go to more to the solution, because I've got around 10 minutes left. So let's go into the solution mode. So okay, we've got these hacks, and it's all stuff that we didn't write ourselves, right? But how can we solve this? And it's not a simple thing, because there are three things involved: culture, process, and tooling. Well, let's first go into that culture, and they are equally important. It's not like, here you have the tool, use it, it's a silver bullet, it will solve all your life problems. If that was the case, I wouldn't be standing here. But if we look at culture, we have to look at what our different stakeholders are, because We as developers want to do different things, right? We want to create things, we want to make new things, we want to make it as soon as possible with the newest technology, and that's it. We want to build. But then we have the security people. That security people at the end, they just want to say no. No, that's not the truth. They just want to be sure that you are not breached. So if you are not going to production, you will not be breached, and the security people are fine. So they have a different mindset. They do not care if it works and if new features will come out. They just care about the fact that they will not be breached because that's their responsibility. What do operations people think about? If it's easy maintainable, can I just push a button? Did you try to put it on and off, right? That kind of thing. In the middle of the night, nobody wants to get bothered like, okay, what's the stack trace? No, if I can put it on and off and it works again until the morning, fine. And what does management care about? Profit. So they do care about new features coming out, but they also kind of care about we do not get breached. But the point is, how much money do you get into security? Because you do not get a return on investment, right? Do I put $1 million in it, 2 million in it, 3 million in it? If nothing happens, it went okay. That's a weird thing to measure. But say, if we take that security thing more serious as a developer, and we put that into the beginning of our life cycle, so developing with the right things or with a security mindset, it might help the whole process, and not after 3 weeks that one of the security people comes up and say, you cannot go to production. You make the chance more slim. You slim in the chance that you can go to production if you do it from the start. So we need to take care of that cultural thing. Then it's process. I can, as a manager, I can come up to you and say, you have to test it like this and that, and it will take you a day a week. And then you probably say, okay, because you tell me to. But then on the other hand, there's that product manager that wants these features in. So you probably will do that 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then slightly go back to your old process. Because, let's be honest, eventually nobody wants to change. But if we can make change easy and make sure that it's not interfering with your current process, so instead of creating more process, try to build it into your current process, then you probably are more eager or more willing to do these things, right? And then we come to tooling. You have to have the right amount of tooling because manually testing and checking off an Excel sheet is probably not the thing you want to do. Even testers nowadays call themselves engineers, and that's for a good reason because they want to automate as much as possible. And we should have tooling for that. So what we should do is make sure that we have a DevSecOps kind of pipeline. And I don't mean your CI/CD pipeline, but I mean your whole life cycle. So why not make sure that we can do this from our local system? For instance, and I'm showing you some tooling, and that's, of course, my tooling, but it doesn't matter the tooling because we only do partial things because you have to do more. And there are a lot of competitors. Everything I show you is free. But just for example, if I'm using Eclipse over here, and if I have multiple workspaces or multiple projects over here, if I can scan them from my local system like this, and I have here an NPM project and I see what the problems are, and I see not only where the problem is, but also what the eventual fix will be, that will help me, right? If I can do that from my local system, it will not even get into my master branch. And by having the right tools and the right plugins, that can help you make sure that this whole lifecycle works. Zooming in and out is such a great thing. So then we have repository. Repository is the same thing. Once it goes into your master branch, why not automatically scan your master branch or scan your repository for dependencies that might go wrong, but also static code analysis every time somebody pushes something like that. If you can have that, and you can see, for instance, hey, we have a vulnerability over here, but it's not a top level, it's a lower level thing, and you can have these things up automatically and even maybe automatically create a fix PR if it's already there, why not? And why not do that for the same reasons with every pull request that comes in? Check the delta of the pull request and see if new things are coming in. And that's not only dependencies, but also vulnerable code or malicious code. People are trying to insert a SQL injection kind of thingy or whatever. But if you automate this, it will not interfere with your current process. And then you have your CI pipeline. Most of the people that do security scanning already use it in their CI pipeline. And you should be doing that. But not only there, because then it's still a gatekeeper, and then it's still an alarm that goes off, and you say, okay, now I have to work. But there's a major bug in production. And how do I solve this if I cannot focus on that, but I also have to fix some security issues? And then you're in like in between fire, right? So you have to make sure that in all steps there is scanning and automated help for you to do so. And we still need to do pen testing. Don't worry, we still need to do that. And since you're gone over there with that CI/CD stuff, then it's fine. Then you're safe, right? Then you just push it to production and you never look at it again. Please don't. Make a snapshot and make sure that snapshot is still scanned, because your master branch is growing and growing and growing. But make sure that your tag or a snapshot of that current state is there, and scan for dependencies that go wrong or whatever, because most of the time it's other people's code or your code, other people's code that you just use that might go wrong. So if you put all these things in place from beginning, the left side, to the end, then it might be more feasible for you to think with a security mindset. And we try to leave this message: shift security as left as possible. Shift security left. And with left, I mean try it on your local machine with the right tooling, with the right plugins to do so. That was the part about the stuff that you do not contain. But there is still a part that you do contain. That's your code. We wrote a few cheat sheets on some things in Java and NPM, how to watch for common security problems that are there. And some things are very, very obvious, like make sure that for SQL injection you parameterize your, or you make sure that your parameters are not inside the string that is your SQL string. So you do query parameterization. I was looking for that word. These are obvious, but it's still one of the major topics in the OWASP top 10. And in these cheat sheets, some things are obvious, some things might not be obvious, but they help you to, instead of only clean code, also make secure code. So take a look at this if that's something you want to look at. Then I will go to questions, and I will just go to that page over here. I was pretty clear everybody was still asleep. Let me refresh that. Are there any questions from you from now? Because I have 2.5 minutes left. There are no questions. Everything is great. There's one question. I will repeat the question. So the question was, what is the difference between Sneak.io and Black Duck and all the other things? There is a lot of difference, but there is. I will come back to you in that, because that will be a product pitch, and that's not the reason why I'm here. I would love to talk to you about what's the difference between these things, but I'm not here to say you have to use my product. The difference is the benefits is that in our perspective, we try to be developer first. So that means that you can use it today, and you do not have to make sure that you have a premium account. Or for open source development, we provide it for you for free. And there are a lot of different approaches to that, but we tried it. Our approach is to do it from a developer perspective. That's the main reason. If we want to go into details, I would gladly talk to you afterwards, but I want to see if there are more questions about the whole security mindset first. If there are no questions left, I will put. Oh, there's another question. Yeah, go on. Now, what most of the scanners do is we do not first what we do not do static code analysis. So we look at your libraries and we look at the versions of your library, and basically we have people who come in and tell us that there is a mistake, and our security teams will research that, and we proactively research ourselves. So we have basically, it's a big database with versions and with the problem in that version pointed out to you and maybe a fix. And that's what we try to do. We want to give you not only to say, hey, this is wrong, but also if you upgrade to this minor version, then you have fixed this particular problem. So it's just matching. Well, that's the easy answer. I can make it far more complicated, but in a nutshell, that is what our tool is doing. Any questions? We do not analyze your code. There is things like Sonar Source, Sonar Cloud that do static code analysis, and they are very good at that. And that's their stuff, and we do the other stuff. So that's why I say it's not only a tool for getting your dependencies right, but also you need other tooling that complement that. For instance, to do static code analysis. But you have to make sure that the context of static code analysis is right, because static code analysis will just say this is probably wrong, but they do not know what the context of your program is. So a lot of false positives will be in there. But yes, you need that, and there's a difference. We do not do static code analysis. Okay, that's all the time I have. If you have more questions, please come up to me or ping me on Twitter. If you want to know more, go to the Secure Developer, which is a community that handles all these kind of things from different vendors and whatever. Thank you.